So when I spoke at an Acres conference a couple of weeks ago, a month or something ago, what I did is I started with that mission statement they've had from the beginning. In order to be economic, agriculture must be ecological. And I said, I love this, but I would add to it. You have to measure value not just of cash extraction, but of value production over long enough time horizons. And in order to accomplish that, it must be rooted in collaborative relationships. And that's where the magic lies. Because with collaborative relationships, we are building local vitalism, and you're not allowing the energy to be extracted by VC or corporate big agribusiness. You can play these larger scale games where you actually can leverage the effectiveness of regenerative agriculture to be competitive at scale, right? I guess
When you say collaborative relationships, what do you mean by that?
any place where you're behaving in unity as a groups of middle class families so that you can play the large scale games effectively, right? Like, back to another statistic, 89% of ranches in the US are less than 100 cows. Of that tranche of ranches, the average herd size is 22 cows. Most of those farms are subsidized hobby farms because they have full-time city jobs, they farm at a loss, they're basically just harvesting the tax deductions. And that is one of the reasons we have this entire consciousness right now of middle class family farming is collapsing, has collapsed in America. Of we know that the bulk of farmers aren't effectively doing it. I think it's 6% of ranches in the U.S. produce, I think it's control 31% ish of the land mass, produce 75% of the beef. And that's not even getting into talking about the growth of like beef on dairy or the growth of the import markets and how that's just getting worse and worse and worse. We need to, back to the idea the hope is in, not trying to be overly individualistic of I'm going to pull myself up by my bootstraps alone. Like that whole thing is a LARP. The frontiersman families of early America, when they went west on the wagon trails, they didn't go as one family, they went as groups of families. You need the capability of having enough people relying on each other to be able to handle the hardship, to be able to come up with solutions, but to work together with enough energy to overcome the issues, right? Because there's so much stacked in the deck against us. So, like for our operation, the way we did it, we came up with the herd share system, which I covered some of that story in the intro and farm tour stuff. But basically, we have on our ranch all the breeding stock in the program. A pretty large group of middle class families owns that breeding stock. So rather than taking their long term like cash holdings and owning it in like an ETF that's invested in BlackRock, buying up houses to lease them back to your children and destroying the future of your family, they decided I want to keep this energy inside like the business network locally that I believe in. And so we brought these people together, and then every year when the calves are weaned, we split the calves. They get some food security, they get some local asset security, and we as the farm or the captain, the steward who's boarding those animals gets to make the decisions, and the farm is able to have effective scale. Like Jaime Elizondo says that the economically viable scale of cow-calf operations in the U.S. is 500 head. If 89% of those ranches are 22 head, they're nowhere near. But due to us doing this together with this collaborative model with herd shares, we're actually able to be at a size where we can play the games with the big boys. And the actual value produced through regenerative grazing is actually able to come to the forefront because we're at that game at the table at a large enough size that our advantages start to come to the forefront again. That's what it takes to rebuild the vitalism of a rural economy is we have to bring enough people together with unity that we can outcompete the people who are decimating and extracting the energy from rural economies.
So, I guess with that, then too, also, why is food, I guess, from the consumer standpoint, they see it so expensive,
Yeah.
paired with the fact that they think that the farmers and ranchers are doing well and making profit.
Yep. First thing I'd say, like even to tie back to the other threads early in this conversation, rural America, productive America is not your enemy. That angst being inserted between the cities and the rural economies, that is part of what's being weaponized to keep America weak. We are on the same side. We want a healthy, strong America again, the people to be healthy. I think the statistic I read the other day is 78% of Americans have a chronic disease. Like even most farmers live in food deserts now, where they're not eating what they produce. They don't have access to healthy fruits and vegetables. They're mostly like living like a blue collar tradesman on junk food of fast food while they're out here working their asses off trying to keep their farm afloat economically, right? We need
Only
healthy,
producing like one or two crops
yeah.
that are just part of the same cycle.
Yeah, and there's layers and layers beyond this where the legislation and regulations keeps them from being able to run local food systems again because, like the local processor problem we were talking about, they keep trying to push food safety laws that probably make sense for somewhere doing 10,000 or 100,000 head of cattle a day on these these processors that are doing 100 or 1,000 head a day. And it just doesn't make sense. These small local processors don't need $1 million in wastewater treatment. What they're doing with having like a septic system going out into a biological garden of like a seepage field that's being processed through plant cover crops and things is totally fine at that scale. But the legislation is being pushed by the lobbyists from the big business to keep the small guys down so that they don't get disrupted, to keep the profit up at the top of the big agribusiness. And those guys can play capital and finance games, cheap debt games, kind of play the Cantillon effect. For those who don't know, the Cantillon effect is this idea that those who are closest to the money printer benefit first from the printing of the money. That doesn't just mean money being printed and handed out, which it is through grants and things and subsidies, but also just access to cheap debt is an advantage of being close to the money printer where you can outcompete those who have higher capital costs, right? Because they're able to play the game economically where they're in the economy and market before inflation kicks in. So their cost of production is lower versus the other rest of the economy is having to do things at higher prices as the inflation trickles out, right? And so you've got legislation holding these guys down. You've got market effects holding these guys down. There's all these layers, right? But if we can band together, we can create enough viable scale to play those games. And those games aren't just like efficiency of scale of operations of a cow-calf operation. These are games of we've got big enough things happening to get taken seriously when we sit at the table and negotiate legislation processes, right? To compete against the lobby dollars being spent to keep us slaves to the systems. All these layers are things that if we're being selfish of just, I'm going to get mine for my kids for the future, rather than we need strong rural communities again, we can't win. Like my dad told me a story that really hit home for me years ago, where he grew up first in North Dakota and then Washington State in a cropping family. And in their community, there was a family, one of the farming families had fallen on hard times. I don't remember the details. I don't know if somebody in the family, like the wife, had health issues and something happened where they kind of got caught behind the eight ball for a couple years of crop cycles and things. And there was a year coming up where the weather was forecast with some bad storms during harvest season. The whole community locally, there's maybe half a dozen big farming families in this local community that they're the families that support the local schools and their kids make up a lot of the local economy with just the different like small businesses and things happening. And all the farmers got together without even asking, talking about it, whatever, and harvested the crops of the struggling family to get them in the storage before they harvested their own. And I asked my dad, well, like, why? Like, why did they do this? Like, were they trying to, like, be nice? Was this charity? He's like, no, it wasn't. What they understood is there's only so many pillar families in a given rural community. And if that family failed, it takes a brick out of the foundation of the whole rural community. It takes a leading family out of the school system. It takes a leading family out of the business networks, right? And what my dad said, my grandpa's mindset was, I can afford to have a bad year if the storms get me. They can't. And the local community can't afford that family to go under. Like, forget my own personal self-interest. My long-term self-interest is rooted in a vibrant local economy that works, a vibrant, strong church and school community, of families that are flourishing, bringing energy and children into the world to keep it turning over and working, right? And what they understood was that the wealth long term of all their families rises and falls on the tide of all the families being able to make it. we don't really have that as much anymore. We've been atomized. Like you,
I don't have that at all.